Clyde is a brilliant engineer whose world revolves around his wife and young daughter. In a tender moment, his little girl proudly gives him a handmade bracelet, a symbol of the warmth and love that fills their home. But that warmth is shattered in an instant. When Clyde answers a knock at the door, two intruders force their way inside. He's beaten, tied down, and left helpless as the men ransack the house. One of them, Darby, sneers that you can't fight fate before stabbing Clyde and turning his cruelty toward the family. His partner, Rupert, tries to back out, but Darby silences him and presses forward. What follows is every parent's nightmare. Clyde is forced to watch, powerless, as his wife is brutalized and murdered, and even his daughter is not spared. Bound and bleeding, Clyde can only scream into the void before slipping into unconsciousness. The case soon lands on the desk of Nick, a rising prosecutor with a near-perfect conviction record. Nick prides himself on winning, not necessarily on seeking justice. When a judge rules that key DNA evidence is inadmissible, Nick decides the risk of trial is too high. Instead, he strikes a deal. Darby will testify against Rupert, ensuring Rupert faces the death penalty, while Darby himself walks away with a reduced charge and just a few years behind bars. For Clyde, already broken by grief, this decision feels like betrayal. He pleads with Nick to fight for real justice, even handing him notes that could strengthen the case. But Nick brushes them aside, insisting that the system only works with what can be proven in court, not what everyone knows to be true. To Nick, the plea bargain is a win. To Clyde, it's a devastating insult, proof that the system meant to protect families like his is built on compromise.
Kill my little girl, man. You know that.
It's not what you know, Clyde. It's what you can prove in court.
In court, Rupert is framed as the main offender, while Darby sits smugly, mocking Nick with quiet jokes. The plea deal is sealed, and outside the courthouse Nick calls it a win. Darby, dripping with sarcasm, thanks him for the support. Clyde watches from a distance, devastated, realizing justice has been reduced to a bargain. That night, Nick goes home and tries to ease his guilt by speaking softly to his unborn child. But the cracks in his choices are already showing. 10 years later, Nick's career is thriving, but his family life is strained. His daughter has grown into a talented cellist, yet he misses her recital once again. His wife's disappointment is clear. Nick is always at work, never truly present. On that same day, Rupert faces execution. Nick chooses to witness it with his colleague, Sarah, instead of being with his family. As the injection begins, Rupert swears he never killed Clyde's family. The words unsettle Nick and Sarah, but what follows is worse. The chemicals don't work. Rupert convulses, screaming in agony, until he dies a horrific death. The warden insists it's a freak accident, something that has never happened before. Then comes the chilling clue, a bottle handed to Nick, marked with the words, "Can't fight fate." Nick knows exactly where those words came from, Darby. Police track Darby down. He's in his room, careless and high with a chick, until a muffled voice calls. The caller knows everything about him. Darby panics. The voice tells him to look out the south window. He sees police closing in from every direction. Terrified, he fires at the cars below. The voice calls again, ordering him to ditch his gun and head to an abandoned factory. Following the instructions, Darby stumbles into a police car with a tasered officer slumped inside. He grabs the officer's gun and forces him to drive. At a remote location, Darby orders the man to kneel, ready to finish him off. But the phone rings again, and the truth is revealed. The officer isn't a victim. It's Clyde himself. Darby pulls the trigger, but the gun had hidden spikes coated with pufferfish serum stab into his hand. His body locks up. He's awake, but he can't move. For the first time, Darby realizes he's the one trapped. Clyde, the man he once left broken, is now in complete control. At the warehouse, Clyde has Darby strapped down. He warns him that the pain he's about to feel will be unlike anything he's ever known. Clyde has prepared every detail to make the suffering last. Before starting, he leans in and reminds Darby of his own helplessness 10 years ago, repeating the same words Darby once used.
You can't fight fate, right, Darby?
Then he switches on a camera and begins his brutal revenge. Elsewhere, Nick and Sarah discuss the botched execution. Nick doubts Darby could have tampered with the chemicals. He doesn't believe Darby is smart enough to pull off something that precise. But soon, the truth comes out. Police discover Darby's remains, cut into 25 pieces. The shocking news is delivered straight to Nick. Sarah starts connecting the dots. She points out that Clyde recently liquidated his assets and bought properties in unusual places, including the warehouse where Darby's body was found. The police move quickly to Clyde's home. Inside, Clyde seems calm, even undressing as the sirens grow louder. He doesn't resist when they arrest him, but he locks eyes with Nick, delivering a chilling stare that feels like a warning of what's still to come. A search of Clyde's house reveals shelves of law books and a torn newspaper, a photo of Nick shaking hands with Darby. Clyde is placed in an interrogation room, handcuffed, while investigators admit they have no solid evidence. All they can hope for is a confession. Meanwhile, at Nick's home, his daughter receives a DVD labeled as her recital. She begs her mother to watch it, but is told to wait until her father returns. Unable to resist, she plays it alone. The disc doesn't show her music. It shows Clyde's revenge on Darby. In the interrogation room, Nick meets Clyde, shuts off the feed and pretends to approve as if Clyde has done the right thing ending Darby. Clyde, speaking carefully, admits he had thought about killing both Darby and Rupert many times, imagining different ways to do it. Nick takes this as a confession and prepares to leave, but Clyde stops him. He begins reciting Nick's daily routine in chilling detail, then orders him to sit back down. Clyde insists that nothing he said can be used against him. He never confessed outright, and there's no evidence to tie him directly to the crime. He even suggests that Darby's body being found in his warehouse could have been a setup, since he owns properties all over the country. Nick pushes back, saying they know he did it. Clyde replies coldly,
Well, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court. Didn't you tell me that once?
Then he makes his demand. He'll give a full confession, but only if Nick gets him a luxury bed with lumbar support. Nick, frustrated and prideful, storms out. Jonas, Nick's boss, is furious when Nick refuses Clyde's demand. To Jonas, trading a mattress for a confession is an easy win, especially when there's no real evidence to hold Clyde. But Nick insists Clyde is just playing games. In the end, Clyde gets the mattress anyway, leaving the warden unimpressed with his antics. In court, Nick urges the judge to deny Clyde's bail. Clyde counters smoothly, claiming he's a law-abiding citizen and that Nick has no proof to keep him locked up. The judge seems convinced, until Clyde suddenly starts clapping. He mocks her for being so gullible, accusing her of letting criminals walk free with nothing more than a few sweet words.
You see, this is what I'm talking about. You were about to let me go. Are you kidding me? This is why we're here in the first place.
I would tread carefully.
Apparently, I just killed 2 people. And you were about to let me walk right out that door. How misguided are you? I feed you a couple of bullshit legal precedents, and there you go. You jump on it like a bitch and eat.
The courtroom is stunned as Clyde tears into her, and the judge finally snaps, and bail is denied. Back in the interrogation room, Clyde tells Nick that the tape he sent was simply good triumphing over evil. He admits he's the man in the recording, but says he has one more confession to make if his demands are met. Nick is tired of the games, but Clyde presses on. He wants a steak lunch from Del Frisco's and an iPod loaded with his favorite music. As Nick prepares to leave, Clyde raises the stakes. He offers Bill's life, Darby's attorney, as part of his confession. When Nick returns, Sarah informs him that Bill has been missing for 3 days. Clyde then looks straight into the camera and tells Nick he can still save Bill, but only if his requests are delivered exactly at 1 p.m. the next day. The following day, the steak arrives, but the warden delays the delivery, double-checking everything. By the time they reach Clyde's cell, it's 8 minutes past the deadline. Calmly, Clyde gives them Bill's location and reminds them the 1 p.m. deadline wasn't for him, it was for Bill.
You better hurry, Nick. Because by anybody's watch but the warden's, you're already late.
Nick scrambles into a helicopter to chase the lead, while Clyde sits back in his cell, savoring his steak and music with his cellmate. He plays the part of a friendly companion, but it's all a setup. Clyde only wanted the T-bone. He changes the music, distracts the cellmate, then suddenly stabs him again and again. When the warden peers inside, Clyde is lying on his bed, relaxed, while the cell is drenched in chaos. Nick and his team finally reach the site where Bill is buried. They find his body underground, an oxygen mask strapped to his face. It took them about 15 minutes to get there from the prison. If Clyde had received his lunch exactly at 1 p.m., Bill would still be alive. Not long after, Sarah sends Nick a message. Clyde has murdered his cellmate. The warden wastes no time and moves him into solitary confinement. Nick visits Clyde in his cell, demanding to know why he's doing this. Why so many lives have been taken. Clyde's answer is cold. He wants everyone to be held accountable for their actions. Nick tries to appeal to him, offering his daughter's bracelet and asking if his family would approve of what he's become. Clyde cuts him down with a chilling reply.
My wife and daughter can't feel anything. They're dead.
Later, Nick and Jonas meet with a CIA contact. the man lays out the truth. Clyde isn't just an engineer, he's a tactician, a specialist who once designed ways to kill from a distance without ever being seen. His imprisonment isn't a mistake, it's part of his plan. Even the cellmate he killed wasn't random, it was a calculated move in a larger game. The contact warns them that if Clyde wants someone dead, they're sure as hell dead. The only way to stop him, he says, is to walk into his cell and execute him. Armed with this warning, Nick and Jonas rush to Judge Laura. They convince her to quietly strip Clyde of his rights. No visitors, no phone calls, no outside contact. She agrees and signs the order, but as she answers her ringing phone, it explodes in her hand. In an instant, she's gone. Nick and Jonas stand frozen, horrified. Back at the prison, Nick confronts Clyde again. He demands to know who's helping him and why he's waging this war. Clyde explodes with anger, insisting Nick still doesn't understand. If this were about revenge, he says, he would have killed Nick's family 10 years ago. This is about something bigger. Then he delivers his ultimatum: release him before 6 a.m. with no charges, or everyone will pay the price. Clyde is then escorted under heavy guard to a maximum security unit. But even locked away, the sense is clear. He's still the one in control. Nick and Sarah dig through stacks of documents, searching for any clue that Clyde might have outside help. But their search turns up nothing. Sarah begins to question their decision to cut a deal with Darby years ago. Nick reassures her it was the right call, though doubt is starting to creep in. The DA's team stays on site until 6 in the morning. When Nick finally sends everyone home, Sarah heads to her car. As she turns the key, the vehicles around her erupt in explosions. She looks at Nick one last time before her car detonates, killing her instantly. 6 officers die in the blast as well. Nick is shaken. Clyde is still locked up, yet the attacks continue. Someone must be helping him. Nick and Jonas meet with the mayor, who is stunned that one man in custody can cause this much destruction. She assigns them extra security. Nick, fearing for his family, sends them to a hidden location with strict orders to avoid anything electronic that could reveal where they are. But when he returns home, he finds a framed newspaper article left behind, proof that someone has already been inside. Back at the prison, Clyde is allowed a walk. Nick confronts him, and in a burst of rage, punches him. Clyde doesn't flinch. He simply warns that this is only the beginning. Clyde smirks and promises that what's coming will be of historical proportions. At Sarah's funeral, Jonas admits he believes they brought this on themselves. Nick insists they made the right choices, but deep down he's starting to doubt. As they leave in their secured vehicles, a figure dressed in black takes control of a military-grade machine, armed with a gun, an EMP, and a rocket launcher. The device disables their convoy, forcing them to a stop. Jonas's vehicle is shredded by gunfire, then obliterated by a rocket. Everyone inside is killed. The mayor, horrified by the escalating chaos, considers firing Nick. But to shield herself from public backlash, she instead promotes him to district attorney and locks down the city under emergency orders. Later, Nick receives an email from one of Sarah's contacts about Clyde's real estate purchases. Digging through property records, Nick compares sales across the last decade. His search leads him to a small garage near the prison, a property owned by Clyde. Nick and the detective head to the garage Clyde once owned. Inside, they find a hole in the floor that leads to a hidden tunnel stretching directly beneath the prison. To their shock, the tunnel connects to every single cell. Clyde had planned his cellmate's death from the start, but when the detective checks Clyde's cell, it's empty. Disguised as a janitor, Clyde slips past security and walks straight into City Hall. The disguise works. He clears inspection with ease. Back in the tunnel, Nick and the detective uncover Clyde's surveillance setup. Cameras are everywhere, even inside Nick's home. They realize Clyde has planted a bomb to kill the mayor during an upcoming security meeting. Nick and the detective rush to City Hall. Moving carefully to avoid tipping Clyde off, they search the floor beneath the conference room. There they spot a suitcase. The bomb squad opens it and confirms their fear. It's a napalm bomb, wired to detonate by cell phone at any moment. Meanwhile, Clyde heads into the tunnel, watching the mayor's meeting begin. He picks up his phone and climbs back into his cell. Inside, Nick is waiting. He holds Clyde at gunpoint, urging him to stop. Clyde asks if Nick is here to make one last deal, but Nick has finally understood the message. He refuses to negotiate with a murderer. He pleads with Clyde to walk away, warning that this choice will haunt him forever. Clyde apologizes softly, then dials the number. Nick immediately leaves, locking Clyde's cell behind him while the detective closes off the secret passage. Hearing the ringtone of the detonator, Clyde discovers the bomb Nick hid underneath his bed. Clyde briefly smiles and sits on his bed, looking at his daughter's bracelet as the bomb explodes. Nick, district attorney and now a premeditated murderer, joins his wife at their daughter's cello recital. Well, that's the end of this story. So what do you think? Was Clyde a victim who exposed a broken system, or just a cold-blooded killer who got what he deserved in the end? Drop your thoughts below. I'm curious where you stand.